What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ Bucky back together. Buck, how you doing, man?
I am good, DJ. I'm excited because training camp is underway. It is always great when we have an opportunity to look at these shows and you begin to see guys going into camp carrying their helmets and shoulder pads and moving around, being getting real football. And so, as you know, once camp starts, we're in a marathon. And so it is on each and every week until we get to the middle of February. So I'm really excited right now.
Yeah, that ride starts, and it is a long ride, and then we're off and going. I'm curious. By the way, we're going to get to some of the least hyped teams a little bit later on. I'm going to talk about those. We don't want to leave any teams out. Talk about one of the top college players I had the chance to look at over the last week, Buck, and we can have a good conversation there. But I'm curious. I saw something about this the other day. It might have been Richard Sherman was talking about it, but conditioning test. What was your conditioning test? And for those that don't know, what's that look like?
Oh man. So conditioning tests, they come in so many different forms. When I was with the Green Bay Packers, we would do 300-yard shuttles. A 300-yard shuttle is basically everyone aligns on the goal line. You run and touch the 50-yard line. You go 50 and back 3 times. So it's 6 runs in between. And there's a designated time for you to make. Somewhere it's normally low 50s, depending on the turn. In Jacksonville, we did that 300-yard shuttle, but we did it differently. It was 60 yards. And so you did 5 runs, but the time was shorter because the more turns that you have, the more time.
That's the killer. That's what gets you.
But the one that I've heard, the one that is the beast that they all talk about is the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah.
The Baltimore Ravens do 6 150-yard shuttles, but it's from goal line to 25-yard line and back 3 times.
That's a lot of stopping.
A lot of turns. And the time is in the low 30s for like your skills and your linemen. And so it's funny. I watched someone, one of their reporters do it a few years ago, and it looks like a monster. It is a 2-to-1 rest. So if you go 32 seconds, you end up getting 70 or so seconds rest. A nightmare. So, yeah, no, those conditioning tests are monster, but you have to do it because you want to see where guys are at. Because I've always felt like this is weird, DJ. So you do all the offseason program, right? You work hard. You spend 8-9 weeks getting everyone ready. And then you let everyone out the building in June.
Mm-hmm.
And in that month and a half that they're away, they can fall out of shape. So they need to train, but you want them to be smart because you don't want them to get hurt. But then if they come back and they're out of shape, it's this thing. And I don't know. I've always wondered if there's a better way for the NFL to bridge that time so it could be the full ramp up in the training camp instead of working, stop, then having to start all over again when you get back to it.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams have taken to that, though, in terms of maybe being a little bit slower at the launch of camp. And it used to be, look, you grew up in the two-a-day era, man. Like that, those don't longer exist. Yeah,
we're getting right to it.
Padded up twice in a day, like that doesn't happen anymore.
Day 3.
Yeah.
Day 3, we're at it. You report, you drop your bags. The next day you have the conditioning test, and then after that,
yep, we're going.
We're going, and it's not, hey, we're gonna ease into it. We're gonna walk through. Nope, balls down. We're playing. Yeah, you're right. A lot of teams have, and I've had a coach say this. I mean, you're just trying to win the first 3 days of camp. You're just trying to get through the first 3 days with no soft tissue injuries.
Yep.
You want to make sure that everyone is kind of acclimated to how we're doing and how we're practicing. There's plenty of time to get the work in. You want to make sure everyone is on the same page.
No doubt. Well, I'm glad I've had to do the 300-yard shuttles. That was ours in college, and I hated it, man, because your back would all lock up because all at those turns, man. It didn't look bad. You'd watch the group before. I just remember watching the group before you go and being like, this ain't that bad. And then you get going and you're like, about to hit that butt lock as you hit that last turn.
North Carolina, we did 400s, but 400s on the football field. So if you can imagine, down, back. And I just remember the time being 52 or whatever. And they would give you the option. You can do 3 at 50 and be done.
Yeah.
Or if you miss any of those, you got to do that 4th one and make the original time. And so if you're overzealous.
Oh, you go after it and don't get it. You better get it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
risky, man.
it's not a lot of fun. Not a
Um,
lot of fun at all.
all right, let's jump in here. This is what I wanted to do. I've been away for a while and just kind of been reading a lot, paying attention, seeing what some of the coverage is. And I feel like and look, you're always trying to find the stories, and I feel like we've kind of hit on a lot of these same teams throughout the offseason for various storylines. And so I looked at the group of teams, all 32 teams, and I tried to think of, okay, what are the 5 least talked about teams this entire offseason? And I want to give those fan bases maybe a reason for some optimism, some hope, and some excitement about what's to come in the upcoming season. So I've got this list of 5, Buck. Once we get through this, you tell me if I'm missing anybody. But I'm going to start first with the Atlanta Falcons. Is there anything about the Falcons? I know, with Arthur Smith, Matt Ryan has moved on. Arthur Smith, year 2. The quarterback, he's reunited with Marcus Mariota. Is there any reason for hope or optimism here with the Falcons?
I mean, I think the hope and optimism springs from the fact that this team won 7 games last year, and the roster wasn't very good. Now, Matty Ice was a big part of that because I felt like, despite the numbers, I felt like he played really, really well. He had a streak ended where, for the first time in 11 seasons, first time in 10 seasons, he didn't go over 4,000 yards. But he did a really good job of kind of keeping it together. Now with Marcus Mariota, this offense will look a little different. Marcus is a little more athletic, maybe not as precise when it comes to the precision in the passing game, but good player, solid player. The issue that you have is in the passing game, you have Kyle Pitts, but I don't know where else you go outside of Kyle Pitts. Calvin Ridley sitting out for a season due to the violation of the policy. I just don't know where they're going to get it, and I don't know the running game. Cordero Patterson was great last year. Can he replicate it? My hope is that Arthur Smith is so good in terms of just kind of the X's and O's and the schematics. Maybe he can pull another rabbit out of the hat. That's where my optimism will spring from.
Yeah, I'm going to say, the optimism offensively is that Arthur Smith is going to kind of go to that Tennessee background of his, of ground and pound. And then when you do put the ball up in the air, you've got 2 guys that can win. You think about what you already discussed, Kyle Pitts. I've been telling everybody, just get him on your fantasy team. Oh, the quarterback's, hitting on Mariota, and he's this, that, or the other. Mariota likes throwing the tight end. He's going to enjoy being able to throw to Kyle Pitts. Think about those Tennessee offenses he was a part of. They've always had a key player in that spot. So I think you're going to have a big year from Kyle Pitts. I think Drake London, especially you run the ball a bunch, you're going to get some one-on-ones, and he can just big ball guys down the field. So those 2 guys give me some hope with this offense. But, look, in being a realist, Buck, if this team were to be down in games, and you think about being in a division with Tampa, who's pretty explosive offensively, you think about New Orleans, even with Jameis, I think they're going to be explosive and dynamic offensively. We'll see how the Panthers come together. But this team is not built to come from behind. They have to establish the run, play with the lead. And then I think that, 500, it maybe sounds a little bit optimistic to some folks. I think they've got a chance to hover around 500 this year if all those things come together.
Yeah, looking at the other side of the ball, the defense can kind of keep them in the mix. A.J. Terrell has blossomed into one of the better corners in the league. And can they generate enough of a pass rush to help him on the back end? They have some athletic players, but they just don't have any what I would call brand names on that front. And so can Dean Peace find a way to kind of patch work it, piecemeal it together to keep them in the mix? I do believe you're right. This is Arthur Smith. Their best defense will be their offense and how they elect to play, how they speed up or slow down the game, how they control the tempo by maybe running the football or just being very efficient in a short passing game. A lot of this is going to be from a tactical standpoint, not a talent standpoint. Can they play with different tactics to keep the game tight and then find a way to win it in the fourth quarter? I think that's going to be the key for the Falcons all year.
A couple other guys on defense, Arnold Ebiketie, edge rusher. We both liked how hard he played, how physical he was. Come out of Penn State, he's got heavy hands. Excited to see him and what he does in the NFL. D'Angelo Malone, another edge rusher that they drafted there, is an interesting one. But the name I'm keeping an eye on, and we talked about him, I think, on an episode a little while ago, is Richie Grant coming into year 2, get more comfortable. And I think early on it was kind of you get overwhelmed and excited about all the different things he can do. And maybe now it's time to narrow that down a little bit. But you've got a lot of speed and athleticism there. That gives me a little bit of hope. If this Atlanta Falcons team had the first pick in the draft next year, I don't think either one of us would probably be surprised. But I think if they were to be, 7-9, I don't think we'd be surprised either.
Yeah, huge swings and variances, and huge swings in terms of like the expectations, because they're good enough to be a thorn in your side. If you don't bring your A game, they're good enough to win the game. And Arthur Smith is outstanding when it comes to kind of dialing it up. So yeah, it's a dangerous team, not dangerous in terms of being a playoff contender, but certainly dangerous on a week-to-week basis where they're going to win, they're going to scratch out some wins, and they're going to be in the mix in a lot of these games that we talk about.
All right, so that's number one on our least hyped teams of the offseason. I'm going to get to number two here, and I'm going to go with the Chicago Bears. I mean, we talk so much about these second-year quarterbacks and expectations, and they take the next step with Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson. What can we anticipate? Trey Lance, the excitement about seeing him get an opportunity there with the Niners. There is like zero expectation on Justin Fields, which is kind of weird, man, and this Bears team.
It is weird. Outside of the city of Chicago, there hasn't been a lot of buzz or conversation about Justin Fields. It's just kind of in Chicago. Well, I mean, we'll see if he's good enough to be our franchise quarterback. Did we do enough to help him and support him in those things? I think the buzz has to be like, if you're going to wear an orange helmet like they're wearing.
Oh, man.
If they're going to wear that bright orange helmet.
Not a fan.
You have to be explosive and dynamic on offense. You cannot wear a helmet that looks like that and not put up points, because you're just asking yourself to be clown. And I think they're wearing it in the middle of October, so it's kind of like that trick-or-treat type deal, like a little Halloween flavor. We'll see. We'll see if Justin Fields tricks the Bears, if he treats them to some spectacular plays. He's one of my favorites when he came out. Let's see if they can figure it out. The one thing they do not have what I would call a marquee weapon on the perimeter. And it's hard for quarterbacks to blossom if you don't have a marquee player around him in the pass game. This is a big challenge for Justin.
Yeah, I like Mooney, and we'll see if Velus Jones can craft a role there. Maybe he can be kind of your jet sweep gadget guy, kind of just get him involved, get the ball in his hands. But you're right, it's not a real dynamic team. Another team, again, in a world we live in where throwing the football is the way to go. I don't know with this team. I think much like we talked about the Falcons, they got to be physical. They've got to kind of establish that ground game that they have there. With David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert, we mentioned him, getting another chance to take that next step in year two, was a nice player for them last year. And then defensively, I love Roquan Smith and what he brings to the table. Obviously, you have Robert Quinn still get after you up front, but they're relying on a lot of youth in that back end. That group's got to come together quick.
Has come together quick. The one thing that we do know about Matt Eberflus, this is a very simple defense. I mean, it is a hustle-hard defense. They're going to be very simple and generic in how they play the coverage. They're not going to ask their guys to learn a lot, but they're going to ask them to run to the ball, to be very physical, to find a way to knock the ball loose or take the ball away. Those objectives are attainable for the Chicago Bears. Look for Roquan Smith maybe to take his game up a notch. He is not, I would say, as dynamic or explosive as Dominic Darius Leonard, but in this defense, there were a lot of plays that just kind of ended up in Darius Leonard's lap. Roquan Smith will occupy that role. I expect him to fall into a ton of plays. He's played in the all-star level, but can he even take it up to a higher level, playing a defense that really should be conducive to his skill set?
Yeah, so if they're going to win games and they're going to surprise people this year, I think, are we on the same page? Probably going to be defensive-oriented with how they get that done.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to be. I think the emphasis has to be on the defense playing well. In Chicago, it has to always be about the monsters of the Midway. It has to be about the defense first, and you figure out the offense there. Because when they've won in the past, it has never been because the offense is driving the force. It's always been because the defense has been the workhorse, the one that carries the water. And I would expect it to continue to be. So as we look at this team with Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles and what they're trying to do in their first year, I would expect the defense to play ahead of the offense, but the offense should still be able to help them squeak out a few wins.
Yeah, well, there you go. We've got the Falcons number one. We've got the Bears number two. Least hyped teams. Let's stay in that region of the country, and let's go to the Detroit Lions. I've got them as the third least hyped team coming into this upcoming season. Again, expectations near the floor. I mean, in some ways, I almost think it's got to be weird showing up to camp when you're like, do we even exist? Like, nobody's talked about us. the quarterback who's, say what you want about Jared Goff, he's been in a Super Bowl.
Mhm.
They've got some exciting young pieces, especially on defense, coming off this draft. It's a team, I think, again, I'd like to play the hand that they have because there's no expectations. And I think they have starting to get a little bit of identity, especially in the trenches, O-line, D-line, Buck.
Yeah, it's an interesting team. When you look at them and you look at the pieces that they have, they certainly are competitive enough to give you problems. Dan Campbell has done a really good job of getting these guys to play hard. They play hard from snap to whistle. There's a level of toughness that you feel when you watch the tape. They just hadn't been good enough. When now they had a little bit of an infusion of talent, this team should be able to go a little more toe-to-toe. Now, do I expect them to win a ton of games? No, but I think this is the team that when you play them, you're like, oh, my God, we got to deal with this team. A lot of energy, a lot of effort, a lot of enthusiasm. I think this team is going to be competitive. I don't know if it translates to a gang of wins, but I think they will be in a lot of games late in the fourth quarter.
And I'm curious to see how long it takes before we see Jamison Williams out there and see what he can bring with that speed. Man, they were sure. You saw the video. They were sure fired up to get him. The draft room, the party in there.
I mean, I know.
Celebrating
That means somebody has a plan for him.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that means. Somebody has a plan for him. So someone has been looking and saying, if we just can get our hands on him, this is the one that'll help us go to the next level. So we'll see. He has great opportunities when you think about Amon-Ra on one side, DJ Chark on the other side. Jameson Williams doesn't have anybody that has necessarily fight to get the ball. I can see them building the passing game around him as a vertical threat stretch playmaker.
One of the things we've said, and we've said it over the years, is it's hard to be a bad football team when you are good on the offense and defensive line. Like if you're solid up front on both sides, now you might not be a championship team. It's hard to be a team picking in the top 5 when you stink up front. Or when you're solid up front on both sides. You're going to find your way into games. You're going to win games. And while I don't know that they have all of the top end talent on the defensive line, I think with Hutchinson coming in there, I think they've got a nice mix of guys now where they've got some depth. They can roll those guys through. I'm excited to see what Aleem McNeil does going forward. I know you talked about him the other day. You liked him coming out. So they've got some guys. They've got some pieces there. Josh Pascal, who we talked about. Keep an eye on Demetrius Taylor, by the way. My App State guy is an undrafted free agent who's you remember from the Carolina game, Buck, because he had the sack and scoop in the score.
I don't remember. I put that away. It's funny you said that about Aleem McNeil because he's from my hometown. If you can imagine that guy playing in the outfield in baseball.
I saw that we showed the video when he got picked.
Holy smoke. Unbelievable. But Detroit Lions have assembled what I call a team that is really built in the image of the city, a blue-collar, scrappy team that's going to get after it. I don't know what the overall talent is like in comparison to some of the others, but, man, if they can get the game the way they want it to make you kind of fight them in a phone booth, they're going to have a chance to win some games. I like what Dan Campbell is doing. Then we got to see if it leads to more success.
All right, there you go. There's number 3 on our least hyped teams coming into the season. Let's get to number 4, and that is the Houston Texans. Now, they've been mentioned, but more – kind of on the sidebar of the tail end of the Deshaun stuff. They had that they settled a bunch of those lawsuits. But in terms of on the field, Buck, has anybody said one word about the Houston Texans this offseason? I can't recall.
No, they haven't. But this is going to be interesting to watch. Davis Mills. Mm-hmm. Davis Mills started a little bit, sat down, came back and had a chance to play. And at the last part of the season, he played really, really well. Now we get a chance to see him grow. Maybe it's just Lovie Smith blowing smoke, but he and Pep Hamilton are really on the same page in terms of Davis Mills' development, the way that he played, how efficiently he played. Maybe he's one of the outliers at the position, someone that's drafted, outside of the first round, but kind of emerges and settles in as a starter. And when given that opportunity, he never relinquishes it. So they have more weapons than you think. It's just kind of underrated. Brandon Cooks has always been a really good player, but you don't really talk about him on a national level. And maybe they just have a team that's just kind of rock solid, but because they don't turn it over, they give themselves a chance to win even more games when we get to the postseason.
Yeah, I think they're going to find themselves in some track meets. I think defensively I can poke some holes in that group, but first of all, we should offer our thoughts and prayers with John Mechie as he's kind of battling leukemia. That was tough news to see the other day. A player, I mean, gosh, a phenomenal player. We talked about him a bunch in the run up to the draft. How excited we were for him, one of the pure route runners out there. But going to probably miss the season this year as he takes on that battle. But as he pointed out in his statement, Buck, it's a treatable. Nobody wants cancer, but it's a treatable form of cancer. So our thoughts and prayers are with John Mechie and his family as he goes through this thing.
Yeah, it's tough. The good thing is they caught it early. By all accounts, is one of the ones where he can have a full recovery. He will be out this year, but if you know anything about Houston, you understand that the medical situations and centers that are in and around that city will give him an opportunity to really maximize his chance for enjoying a full recovery. And then on the field, like, they'll find a way to kind of replace some of the stuff that he was going to bring. But this is a team, man. Lovey had the defense and the team playing hard. They really competed. David Culley did a good job of getting them to play hard. Lovey transitions and takes over, but I expect a lot of it to remain the same. Defensively, they are a team that has the right personnel to kind of challenge you, be it in that Tampa 2 style, but be it in a little more man-to-man, which is what Lovey did last year and what he wanted to do, which is why Derek Stingley was their top pick. Let's see if they get after it, man. Let's see how aggressive they are. Do they opt for complex aggressiveness where they have a bunch of different blitzes and they're still trying to play fast, or do they scale it back and allow their guys to play fast because they know exactly what they're doing?
Yeah, I mean, another young player back there too, Jalen Petrie. We'll see. I like his chances to get on the field early and often. So you've got a couple young players that can really run, and that defense needed to get faster. Christian Harris, who they took in the 3rd round, by the way, another one who can really fly. So I think they've done a nice job of adding some team speed on defense. I still think, though, up front, there's not a lot that really scares you when you look at that defensive front. And so you're going to ask those young guys have to cover a little bit. So I think there'll be some growing pains there. But I do think this offense can sneaky find its way into scoring some points here. I think you're going to see this next step going forward for Nico Collins. There was some excitement there last year. Brandon Cooks has been rock solid, consistent everywhere he's been. You know what you're going to get. Mm-hmm. It's a bummer with the Mechie injury. But I think, Laramie Tunsil being able to get Kenyon Green next to him, Laramie Tunsil kind of teach him up a little bit, coach him up a little bit. You've got a pretty athletic side there. So I think the offensive line is going to be better. I think the quarterback's going to be better in year 2. I just think early in the season, Buck, I think they're going to have a tough time slowing people down early in the year is my prediction. So many young guys in the back end. Yeah,
it's hard to play with so many young guys in the back end. Like, it's hard to get everyone on the same page. And unless you're just going to be a simple assignment defense where you're playing with 2 iron deer on the lawn, it's hard. And so you're going to have to kind of take your lumps. And while you're taking your lumps, you're trying to give those lessons so they won't happen again. But it's a team that is very, very competitive, a team that should like their chances of being able to kind of make a little noise and do this stuff. I think defense play a big part in it.
All right, this is the last team. We've been going through the 5 least hyped teams coming into the year, what we can expect from them. How can we get hyped about teams that haven't received any? We've had the Atlanta Falcons. We've had the Chicago Bears, the Detroit Lions, the Houston Texans. And finally, you tell me if I'm wrong, have you heard one word about the Minnesota Vikings since the season ended?
They are laying in the cut. They're really under the radar. I mean, really under the radar.
It's a talented team, man. There's a lot of talent on that roster.
For a team that certainly has talent, a team that underachieved. Remove Mike Zimmer, but you bring in a young, dynamic leader with energy who has been around enough quarterbacks to understand what the position should look like. He's a guy who's worked previously with Kirk Cousins, so he understands how to kind of build that out with the quarterback in mind. But then I think about how balanced you can be with the running game. I think about Dalvin Cook and Madison, how they're just able to run the football. You think about young wide receivers, Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson. Even though Thielen came back to the pack a little bit, still 2 guys that can get it done. And offensively, man, they kind of mash you and maul you at the point of attack. And so you better bring your big boy pads when you play the Minnesota Vikings because they are going to put it on you. And if you're not ready for it, you can find yourself in the loss column.
Well, I think, you look at schematically in the run game, I think you'll see a lot of the same things. This is a kind of outside zone friendly group. You got outside zone running back. You've got outside zone scheme. You got an offensive lineman that's athletic. It should, thrive in that area. It's been a little bit up and down, a little inconsistent want to see Garrett Bradbury kind of become what we wanted him to become when he came out. That'd be nice. But the nice thing with Cousins is you have a lot of the system is kind of the same.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the difference. You've got the creativity of Kevin O'Connell coming in there. But more than anything else, you've got somebody who A, likes you, and B, believes in you. So it's amazing. You've seen it. I mean, I've been around teams and seen it. When you have a coach-player relationship, and I think Kirk Cousins, people can hit on him all they want. He's been a top 12 type quarterback for several years now. And now he's got somebody that's actually in his ear, that's calling plays, that's the head coach of the football team, that's like, hey, I'm a Kirk Cousins guy. I'm in on you. I think you'll see that confidence. I think you'll see Kirk Cousins have an unbelievably good year this year.
Well, I mean, I like hearing that. I'm sure Minnesota Vikings fans like hearing that as well. I will say advocacy is everything. Everybody needs an advocate in the building. Advocate leads. If you have an advocate in the building, not only do you get more opportunities, but you're ensured to be set up for success in those opportunities. Kevin O'Connell knows Kirk Cousins. By all accounts, he's a Kirk Cousins fan. He is going to do everything to get Kirk Cousins playing at the levels that we saw him play at early in his career. Now, the trick will be, how do I do this while maintaining enough balance, while maintaining control of the team and my role as the CEO? It is going to take the team to kind of help him stay on track, but this is absolutely a great opportunity for him.
All right, let's take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk about one of the more intriguing college evaluations, as we always have an eye towards the NFL draft. And we'll finish up the show today with a couple other nuggets here as training camps are just getting underway. We'll be right back. All right, Buck. So finished up the first look series. Only did 5 guys this year. Got a little beat up here health wise. Had to go on the injured list, but we fought through it. Got these 5 guys done. The last of which was Bryce Young. I know, because I'm trying to remember how this timeline worked with COVID. So did you get to be around Bryce with any of the Elite 11 stuff, or was that COVID?
I got a chance to see him. I got a chance to see him kind of come through there and all of that. He was always the big deal. And at the previous high school where I coached, Notre Dame, Sherman Oaks, we tried to get him through. I watched him his first season. He was at Cathedral High, which is downtown, right behind your first place Dodgers Stadium, like right behind Chavez Ravine. Like it's right there.
Wow.
And so just to see him at Cathedral.
Do you know how obnoxious I'm gonna be when we get Soto? Do you know how obnoxious I'm gonna be?
He's not going to you guys, man.
We get Soto. Can you imagine Soto and Tatis? Just haven't even played a game.
Does Tatis even play? Did he retire? No. I haven't seen him. Is he playing?
He's going to be back. He started swinging again. We're gonna add 2 MVPs.
I've never seen him.
No, nobody's ever added 2 MVPs as they're going towards the playoffs. We're fixing to do that.
I've never seen him. I expect Juan Soto to be either a Yankee or a Dodger, and I think he likes LA more.
Stop.
I was at the home run derby. It's kind of talking to him, I know.
Hey. That, you know what? I was hoping it was going to be like he was going to hit that last home run, and then Manny Machado was going to come up with that City Connect Padre jersey, put it right over his shoulders, and go, go. You own this place now for the next 15 years, because we're going to give him 15 and 500 and change. What we're going to give him?
It's too busy. And I looked up, man. I am really surprised that you even talk about the Padres and the Dodgers when they match up. You talk about a straight ownership situation.
We don't have our guy. Our guy hit 42 home runs in 130 games last year. He hadn't played.
You got a roster full of MLB players there.
We're 10 or 11 games over 500 without arguably the best player in
50
baseball.
games back.
I don't care about Buck. The tournament, man. You got to get in the tournament.
Now it's the tournament. Now all we care about is the tournament. We don't care about the regular season.
No, look, there's teams that are built to win the regular season, get all your depth and all that. Go Utah Jazz it of the 90s. That's fantastic. You ain't gonna win anything. You got 1 Mickey Mouse championship for the Dodgers. That's it. 1 Mickey Mouse championship. Because we get to the postseason, we've got 7 starters. Guess what? 4 of those guys go to the bullpen. Now our bullpen's on fire.
Well, speaking of on fire, we'll get back to the original premise of Bryce Young. Watching him,
we took a little side turn right there, a little sidetrack.
Then we got a chance to watch him in modern day. Look, man, he's everything. The one thing, this guy is what I call a Las Vegas blackjack dealer. He gets it out, much like a lot of the quarterbacks that come through Alabama. His best traits, in my mind, are his ability to get the ball out of his hands quickly, to quickly read the defense, to know exactly where the ball should go, and to put the ball in the strike zone. The one issue that people are going to have with him is just when you watch him physically, you worry about the size, because it's a noticeable difference. I had a chance this summer to be with him and CJ Stroud. It's a difference.
Yeah.
CJ Stroud is the prototype in terms of size, dimensions. Bryce Young isn't. But that's not to say there's not a path for Bryce Young to be a high-end quarterback. I mean, just look at Kyler Murray. And Kyler Murray just signed that whopping deal, and he doesn't have the prototypical dimensions that we look for at the position. I just think for Bryce Young, this year is about just showing everybody that his accuracy is next level. Because if he can show people that he can paint the corners and consistently knock it in the strike zone, I think the size thing will go by the wayside, and people will focus on the play and the efficiency with which he plays the position.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned those guys because that is going to be, they're kind of traveling together, and I have not seen either one of them throw live in person. So I think that helps when you get a chance to be around them, see all that. Everybody I've talked to has said the same thing. I've talked to area scouts and actually college directors that have been doing their homework on these guys and have been around both of them in person. And the same thing happens with Bryce when I bring him up. Is everybody goes, you got to be around him. He's little, man. Like you stand next to him. He's little. And then I go, well, where do you come down on him? Like, I love him. There's a lot of forgiveness here. And I found myself in the same boat because I haven't even seen him yet. And I'm sure that'll be a little bit of a startling experience.
Yeah, he's smaller. He's smaller. And I can say this. I don't think he'll be mad at me sharing this because he asked, how much does the size thing matter? And I was like, I said, it depends. It depends on how good you are at the other stuff. Yeah. If you're really good at the other stuff, the stuff that really matters when it comes to playing quarterback, the IQ, the processing, the accuracy, the arm talent, within the sizes isn't a big deal. If you're not like that, then it becomes an issue because you wonder what is going to be his remedy or his secret sauce to allow him to have success. Normally, though, what's different about him from an athletic standpoint, he's not a runner. He's a classic pocket passer. He does his work in the pocket. And I thought your comparison, because I saw the pictures, Drew Brees. I mean, that's that.
He's a point guard.
Yeah, Drew Brees was athletic in the pocket. He had a tennis background and the ball in and out of his hands. And when he settled in and when Drew Brees kind of found his sweet spot in New Orleans in terms of system, weapons, and how he played, it worked. Same thing for Bryce. Whoever takes Bryce Young, you have to know, hey, this is how he plays. Kind of like the other guys that had played before him, but maybe a notch better in terms of the talent. Hey, this is what he is. He's a point guard. So, hey, we're going to get the ball. We're going to surround him with weapons. We're going to have RPOs and all this other stuff. It's going to come out, and we're going to have a high efficient offense that allows him to go to work.
All right, here's how I would kind of explain that with Bryce, talking about his athleticism. I think of recess. You remember when we were kids, we played freeze tag?
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
Remember that? You tag them, then they're frozen. You got to wait for somebody else to come tag you. Like, he would never be frozen. He is phenomenal. He is ultra twitched up short area. So in other words, you put him in a little 8x10 room, guys aren't going to be able to get their hands on him very, very much because he's so quick. Now you want to put his hand on the line and ask him to run 4 yards. I don't think he's going to blow anybody away with that. I don't think he has that type of juice, but he's very sudden. He's very urgent. He's very quick. And he's got phenomenal instincts, maybe as good at instincts as I've seen from a player that's only played for a year in college. Talking about being able to feel backside rush, kind of just slide, drift away, being able to climb up in the pocket to get away from it. When a throw requires you to drop your arm down, change your angle, he can do that without impacting his accuracy. He sees you make a mistake. If there's a hole, he finds it. He gets to number 3 really quickly for a young quarterback. You saw, Mac Jones, we mentioned that was his superpower was just being able to process. Bryce has the same type of a thing. He gets there quick and he can find it. He's willing to take the check down. So I know the size thing, and I know that bothers a lot of people. And I maybe that'll influence me when I'm around him up close in person. But Buck, accuracy, all 3 levels, poise, decision-making, playmaking, twitch. Then you hear about the stuff at the school, intelligent, leadership, work ethic, all that stuff. I'm like, okay, well, am I really going to take all that good stuff and just throw it away because he's not big, I don't know. That's going to be the challenge for teams going forward. But that dude is a good football player, man.
And look, learned a long time ago in this business, man, you can't go wrong with good football players. Like we can talk about wanting the beauty pageant winner, but at the end of the day, can the guy play ball? And he certainly can ball out. And I just believe that when you watch him at Alabama, and I know he's surrounded by A-level players and those things. He played in big games. And I remember the game last year against Auburn when he didn't have it going. DJ couldn't get it going for most of the game, but then when they needed it in the fourth quarter, magic. That long drive at the end, he is just absolutely dealing and dropping dime after dime after dime. To me, that's what I want to see. I want to see how he performs in those moments, and he's already shown that he can deliver. And I think for him and CJ Stroud and some of the other quarterbacks, this year would be interesting because you want to see him in very competitive situations, high-level moments. How do they perform? And throughout his career, Bryce Young has performed. So let's see if he can do it again.
Can I just point out one thing here for the most part? Because I think we have to get away, from burying guys because of, or, not burying them, but being a little bit overly critical because they're playing with better dudes than they're playing against. We talked about this a couple years ago, Buck. You remember that? I mean, when you look at it and go back to the 21 draft, Trevor Lawrence had better dudes than almost everybody they played against. Zach Wilson, considering the competition they were playing, had better dudes. Trey Lance, they were superior to everybody that they played. Justin Fields at Ohio State, Mac Jones at Alabama. Like, they're all throwing to people that are better than the guys that are trying to cover them. Joe Burrow, look what he was working with at LSU. Yeah. So it's a challenge. Tua obviously had that group. The one outlier is like Justin Herbert. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe it's, hey, stop penalizing guys for playing with great players and maybe start giving guys that haven't played with good players a little bit of a bump. I'm not pulling those guys down, but maybe you can push the other guys up.
You have more examples. You got Justin Herbert. You have Josh Allen.
Yep.
You have Pat Mahomes. Yep. All those guys had to play with lesser cast. And it's funny because all of those guys, we kind of ding, and in part because of what they play. The completion percentage, this and that. And so maybe you're right. It's not about the ones who are blessed with the talented guys, but let's look at the ones who are doing more with less and maybe give them a little extra love, because if you now put them in those situations, what would Josh Allen, what would Pat Mahomes, what would they have looked like at Clemson and Alabama, respectively? I think that is a big part of the evaluation.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with this upcoming class too. Will Levis, I did him earlier. We talked about him. I think.
Hey man, look, I have to dock points. I got to dock points. The mayo and the coffee.
Oh, that's bad.
That begins to make me question your judgment. So I just gotta pull him to the side.
But if you think about this, there's no adversity he will ever face on a football field quite like that morning. Putting that in his. How do you start that? How does that even happen?
I don't even know. Like Hellman's mayo and coffee, gross.
Yeah, not a good situation. But we'll see what happens with him in the evaluation process. But if we do end up having a CJ Stroud versus Bryce Young, it's going to be very similar to that discussion we had a couple years ago, because you're going to say, man, look at the Ohio State receivers. Yeah, but then look at those Alabama receivers, because they got dudes again coming back. So you just got to evaluate the guys individually, and we'll see how they play this year. I am fired up though for college football to get here, especially because we haven't even talked about it yet. We'll get there. We need to get our coaches on. We got App State, North Carolina. I think it's week 2 though. It's not the opener. I think it's week 2.
I know it's like Labor Day weekend.
Yeah. We got to go. We got to get Mac back on, and we'll get Sean Clark back on.
Coach is really testy right now. I don't know.
Coach
is very testy. Very testy. I see his meeting. He's very testy. He's very upset about what last year did not sit well with him. He's very, very testy. Look, it's rare that I've ever seen. He's so happy-go-lucky. This and that. I know. He's very testy. He's very testy right now. Yeah.
I don't know. I wish there was a way we could figure out we could get out there, but with your high school stuff and with my son going into that high school, I don't think we can pull that off. But if ever there was a move that sticks on the road, North Carolina at App State should have been
in Boone.
In Boone.
And I hope we can pull off the upset.
Look at that. Well, sometimes you got to step up and play the big boys, Buck.
Yeah. Oh, we can pull off the upset. Best team in the state. We're going against the best team in the state this week, guys.
Oh, he's gonna play that up too. Max, he's gonna play that up.
State champion, y'all state champs.
That's right. You know, I mean, by the way, have you seen? They said there was going to be there might be 10,000 portables. Might have 40,000 people at that game.
That's pretty packed. That atmosphere is great.
Yeah,
I'm just glad we're playing y'all in September, not in December. Where it's all snowy and all that.
I'm glad I'm playing. I like playing the big schools early before they kind of find their sea legs a little bit. Try and get them before they get settled in, and then we have attrition. We start losing some bodies. We don't have quite the depth, So no, I want to play them early. Although we're not going to have long to celebrate the win over North Carolina. We've got to go play A&M the next week.
Who did your schedule? Who did that schedule?
It wasn't Sean. I promise you, it was not Sean.
That scheduling. Who's gonna play North Carolina then A&M back to back? What? Ooh, money game.
Yeah, they got to pay for They got to pay for these helmets they shipped me, man. Come on, got to pay for that thing.
That is nice.
I got to get some stuff on these bookshelves. By the way, any ideas? We'll take any and every idea you've got.
That's what happens, man. You got all that cubby space. Jerseys and all kinds of stuff.
Maybe I'll get a framed picture of the scoreboard the last time App played North Carolina. Maybe I should do that. Throw that up there.
Run you only a couple of weeks to enjoy. I will say the last time someone did it to Carolina, that was Steve Spurrier at Duke. It didn't go well for Duke after that. For the next 2 years. Didn't go well.
All right, let's get out of here. It's been a fun one. Good to be with you, Buck. Have a good one, man.
All right, man. You guys be good. It was fun.
See you guys. Thank you so much. We'll catch you next time. Couple more pods this week. We got 3 a week going forward. That's how we do it here. We'll catch you next time right here on Move the Sticks.